Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so you've got a big exam on productivity coming up. Perfect. You are in exactly the right place. We're going to break down everything, and I mean everything you need to know to absolutely ace it. This is your ultimate study guide, so let's jump right in. All right, let's kick things off with a question that gets right to the heart of it all. Are you busy or are you productive? It's so easy to just fill our days with stuff, activity. But does all that motion actually mean you're making progress? For your exam, and honestly for life in general, getting this difference down is the absolute first, most critical step. Okay, first things first. We have to lock in these two big ideas. They sound kind of similar, right? Production, productivity, but they measure completely different things. Production is just the what. It's the simple count, the total quantity of stuff you made. Productivity, though, that's the how well. It's all about how efficiently you made it, and that's always a ratio, your output divided by your input. So here's the game plan for today. We're going to cover production versus productivity, then efficient versus effective. After that, we'll dive into the three main ways to measure it all, talk about adjusting for money and inflation, see how this stuff works in complex companies, and then we'll wrap it all up with your final study guide. Sound good? Let's go. All right, section 1, production versus productivity. It's not just about how much you make. Let's really dig into this because getting this right is the foundation for, well, everything else we're going to talk about.
Okay, so here are the textbook definitions you'll need. But let's think about it this way. Say a factory makes 500 cars. That's its production. Simple. But to figure out its productivity, we got to know what went into making those cars, right? The labor hours, the materials, the electricity, all of it. See, productivity is always about that critical ratio, what you get out for what you put in.
Let's make this super concrete with a classic example. So a factory makes 10,000 calculators. Boom, that's its production. Easy. We do the math, and its productivity is 1 calculator per person hour. Got it? But then, here comes the twist, and you will totally see this on an exam. They hire more people, and they start making more calculators. So production is up. That's good, right? Well, maybe not. When you actually rerun the numbers, their productivity, their real efficiency has actually gone down. And that's the key takeaway, people. Being busier does not always mean being more productive. Okay, on to section 2, efficient versus effective. This is another one of those pairs that sounds similar but is super different. Like the subtitle says, it's all about doing things right versus doing the right things. So, what's the difference? Well, efficiency is all about the process. How well did you use your inputs? Imagine you're building a ladder. If you use every scrap of wood with almost zero waste, hey, that's super efficient. But effectiveness, that's about the outcome. Did the ladder you built actually reach the window you were aiming for? You can be perfectly 100% efficient at building a ladder that's too short. That's being efficient, but not at all effective. And this example just makes it crystal clear. Check this out. You have an operator working on about 67% efficiency. That's a solid number, right? You can measure it. But here's the catch. 60% of the pieces they're making are garbage. They fail the quality check. So really, who cares how efficiently they were made? The process was efficient, sure, but the outcome was a total failure. The whole operation was completely ineffective because it wasn't making a quality product. Okay, section 3, 3 ways to measure. We've got the concepts down, so now it's time to get into the actual calculations. Think of this as your measurement toolkit. This table is going to be your best friend. There are basically 3 ways to slice this. First, you've got partial productivity. It's the simplest. It just looks at one single input, like output for worker. Super useful, but it definitely doesn't tell the whole story. Then there's total factor, which is a step up. It looks at both labor and capital. Better, right? But if you really want the full, complete picture, you need total productivity. That's the whole shebang, all your outputs versus the sum of all your inputs. So, let's put this into practice with a classic exam question. A company gets a shiny new machine, and it makes 20% more parts per hour than the old one. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? Obvious upgrade. But is the entire operation actually more productive? To figure that out, we have to look way deeper than just that one number. And this is why those partial measures can be so tricky. I mean, look, if you only look at labor productivity, things look amazing. It's up 20%. But the new machine costs a lot more to run. So when you look at the machine's productivity, it's actually down 20%.
And then, when you put it all together for the combined total productivity, you get this wild result. The whole operation is now 17% less productive than it was before. Wow.
All right, section 4, adjusting for monetary value. So far, everything's been pretty straightforward, right? Parts per hour, that kind of thing. But what happens when you start measuring inputs and outputs in, well, money? Now things get complicated because, as we all know, inflation means a dollar today isn't the same as a dollar last year. And the key concept is right here. To make a fair apples-to-apples comparison of money from different years, you absolutely have to account for inflation. The trick is to deflate all the numbers down to a single base year. That's how you find their real value. The method here is always the same, so just lock this in. You take any cost or any revenue, and you divide it by the price index for that particular year. So say you made $100 in sales in 2024, and the price index was 1.10. You just divide 100 by 1.10, and you get its real value in base year money. You do that for every single input and output. Then you just use the big formula, real total revenue divided by real total costs. So you do all that math and you get a number, let's say 2.004. So what? What does that even mean? Well, here's the thing. On its own, it means absolutely nothing. It's just a number. A productivity figure is only useful when you compare it to something. Is it better than last year? Is it higher than your main competitor? That's when the number starts to tell you a story. Moving on to section 5, productivity in complex firms. Okay, we've got the theory, we've got the math. Now let's see how this stuff applies in the real world, where things get messy. Like, how do you measure productivity for a giant company with tons of different products? Or what about the service industry, where the output is kind of hard to pin down? For companies with multiple products, it's actually pretty logical. You just measure the productivity for each product line, and then you add up all the outputs and divide by all the inputs to get a total score for the company. But the service industry? Man, that's where it gets tricky. I mean, what's one unit of output for a doctor? A patient they saw? What about for a lawyer? A case they solved? It's tough. And here's a huge warning. If you try to boost productivity by just cutting your inputs, like firing waiters at a restaurant, but the service quality tanks because of it, your effective productivity has actually gone way down. Okay, we've made it to section 6, your productivity study guide. We have covered a ton of ground, so let's boil it all down to the absolute must-know takeaways for your exam. Seriously, if you walk away with nothing else, remember these 5 points. Burn them into your brain. 1. Production is the what, productivity is the how well. It's count versus ratio. 2. Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. Process versus outcome. 3. Partial measures can lie. You need total productivity for the full story. 4. When money's involved, always adjust for inflation. Always. And 5. In services, quality is a key part of the output. Got it? Good.
And that, my friends, is your ultimate guide to productivity. As you're studying for that exam, just keep this final thought in mind. The numbers themselves are just the start. It's how you choose to measure things, what story you're trying to tell, that really matters. Are you looking at just one piece of the puzzle or the whole system? Are you focused on raw efficiency or real effectiveness? Your choice determines everything. Now go ace that exam.